Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast, starting the week the right way with a little bit of Trinity. And not just a little bit of Trinity, because I am joined, reunited, you may say, with my co-host, Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest.
Will Morris.
You, you may hear kind of some indicators, some traffic noise. That is because Will is currently out on a top secret mission to go and find Danny Ings' goals. So he is doing that. But whilst he is out and about, if you're out and about, then you can listen to previous episodes of the Talk of the Trinity podcast on our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. You can view our delightful visages on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, whereby previous episodes are uploaded there as well. And you can keep up to date with all of the latest Villa news on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby all the reaction, previews, latest team news, bit of speculation, a poll or two, and some other comments along the way will be there for all your viewing pleasure. And we do appreciate all the likes, retweets, subscribes, all of the other interactions that we have from the Trinityverse. But getting to matters at hand, events of Sunday afternoon at Villa Park, Villa 0, Chelsea 2. In terms of regular listeners to this podcast will know that Mr. Trinity says that he's the glass half full pundit on the show, and I'm the glass half empty. And there's plenty of arguments that could be made on both sides of that debate about the Villa-Chelsea game and results. Are you half full, Will, or are you half empty based on what you saw on Sunday afternoon?
I'm first half full, second half empty. Like I imagine most Villa fans are. You know, we played well in that first half. Arguably, the best we played under Steven Gerrard in a half of football. Though the other claim to that was the first half against Tottenham Hotspur last season at home, and we know how that ended. It ended a lot worse than Sunday did. It was nice to see that we created chances. It was those fine margins that let us down, and it's, as everybody says, it's those fine margins that win you football matches. And I've got to be honest, I think Gerrard had it a little bit rough leading up into the game because we were 4 unbeaten. Yet there was a lot of disappointment and moaning around it because we'd only won 1 game in our last 4. 4 unbeaten's not bad, really, is it? You know, especially when one of those is Man City. But I think it was just more the manner of performances and whatnot. And it just feels like at the moment that Steven Gerrard can do no right. And I've been vocal on the show saying that I'm not sure it's the right bloke recently and whatnot, or at least I think I have. If I haven't said it here, I've been thinking it. Let me tell you that. I really want him to succeed, whether he'll be given the chance to. I think Chelsea, for him, was a glass half full type of game because he got that reaction in the first half. And it was always sort of like it didn't matter result in many ways for him in regards to his job. Because unless we got absolutely spanked, I don't think his job was ever in jeopardy. I'm not sure what you thought, or the fans of Villa Park, because you were there in attendance, weren't you?
I was.
To the Cayman villain.
I was, and he was in his resplendent Cayman Island Villa tropical shirt. So he was there ready to catch the eye of the Villa players in more way than one. But I think in terms of the game itself, as I think we alluded to and said in the preview episode, I agree that Gerrard's job was not going to be on the line based on the result of this game unless it was a catastrophic defeat. And the fact that we went behind so early with such a dreadful mistake almost freed up the Villa players even more in the sense of, well, we're not getting judged if we lose. We're already losing after that catastrophe. Let's just go at it. nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think for the first half, I agree, we were the better team, created more chances than we had all season. I think if you added them all up in terms of all the other games, which is positive in the sense that we created a lot of chances in one half, not so positive that we hadn't really done much for the rest of the season up to that point. But I think there was all similar to that Tottenham game you mentioned. I think there was the feeling at half time of we're going to regret not taking at least one of those chances. And so it proved in the second half, really. I think we didn't do too much in the second half, especially in comparison to the first half. Second goal, yeah, you couldn't say it was as bad a mistake as the first one, but I think Martinez would want that back in terms of his movement for the free kick. As soon as he went one way, there was no chance of him getting across, which I don't think was the. Doesn't need me to say it wasn't the best goalkeeping in the world. I mean, in terms of you can see it, but Martinez, consistent performer generally. So one mistake, you know, you're not going to advocate for it to be sold. Tyrone Mings, we've talked about him before. 95% of the time he's brilliant. 5% of the time he drops a clanger. You just hope that that 5% doesn't cost you a goal. Unfortunately, it did in this game, but you can't really say based on the performance of the first half that that was the reason we lost, because we created enough chances to get a couple of goals. I mean, it was a combination of good goalkeeping and not very good finishing, really, in terms of we should have scored at least two. But Chelsea were able to sit back and try and wrest momentum back, which they did in the second half through their changes in personnel and shape. And after the second goal went in, I think there was more a resignation around the ground that we weren't going to get a point. You know, there's no chance of scoring two, let alone one. And at the end of the game, I was going to say, there were some boos from the whole end at full time, and there were some chance of Gerrard out. But I think the more, I suppose, damning fan reaction was that the ground was pretty empty by full time. Most people had already left. And I think that's in terms of going back to, you know, the recent games. And yeah, you can say anything you can with stats. You can prove anything with stats, as the saying goes. 4 unbeaten you mentioned, but in terms and Man City, that's probably, well, I don't think probably in doubt the best result of the season. I think in terms of the Forest game, we were dreadful. Leeds game, not much better. Southampton, they're not doing very well in the league, so you'd expect to win. So it's that kind of antipathy, really, that kind of shrug of the shoulders from a lot of the Villa fan base, rather than anger. I mean, in terms of the crowd got behind Villa after the early goal, and there wasn't really too much negative reaction, I didn't think, during the course of the game. I mean, I heard some fans say that they thought McGinn got booed when he got taken off. I didn't hear that personally in the crowd.
You wouldn't hear that.
But
you wouldn't hear that.
There's something there. But I think it's in terms of most Villa fans are just resigned. It's just quite a team going nowhere, really. I think summed up by the fact I think we were 16th before the start of the day, and we stayed 16th, I think, with the results. But I think in terms of that Chelsea performance, you can say that there's things to work on, which there are, because it was better. That first half was better than previous performances. But I think when you're saying, oh, that first half was a 45-minute spell, you can put that in terms of a top 5 45 minutes under Steven Gerrard, and he's been in charge for a year. And in a game we didn't score and still lost. I do think that is saying more about where Gerrard has taken or not taken the team of Chelsea. And yeah, Chelsea was a free hit, as we said, but yeah, it's not a situation for me personally. I didn't watch that game and think that I've changed my mind about Gerrard, and I think that we're going to qualify for Europe now as a result of that. I thought we had a good go in the first half, didn't do much in the second, still didn't score, didn't appear to have a plan B when Chelsea changed their shape. I mean, Chelsea, very good team, so you can't criticise in itself losing to Chelsea, but the other issues, it's not losing to Chelsea, it's not beating Forest, it's not beating Leeds, it's losing to Bournemouth, it's those other results. And I think, we'll talk about the Fulham preview in a moment, but I'd say in terms of that Chelsea performance, yeah, as an isolated 90 minutes, you can't say it was terrible. But in terms of the whole context of the season, did I see the blueprint to get Villa up the league table? No, I didn't. And is that me being harsh, or is that just the reality of the position we're in?
I think it's the reality of the position that we're in, and I hate to say it, you're right. It's a year. It's one of the top 5 halves of football, and stressing halves of football that we played under Gerrard, and as you say, we still lost. We still lost 2-0, and you've got to look at what we're doing as a team. How creative were we? We put a couple of crosses into the box, and we were close. He had Ings and Watkins in the team together again. Something that a lot of Villa fans said, we need to play those two together. They do quite well together. When we played Brighton away and Leeds away last year, and they both scored Southampton at home, and then they haven't been playing together, and they've only had a little bit here and there, and fans will say, well, they can't play together. But, it's the chopping and changing. It's the not knowing the best formation, best team. And I think that's just as frustrating, because once he plays his best formation, or the one that he feels he can rely on, and the team he feels he can rely on, and he keeps those players in the starting 11, you feel like confidence may grow, and we may get somewhere. For example, Mings, you mentioned him because of the goal. He's been one of our most consistent players. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him dropped for the next game because of the goal that we let in. And yes, it was a headed mistake, but I very much felt like it was. I didn't feel like it was something that he really could have done better. He could have positioned himself better, but it came off the wrong part of his head, wasn't it? It was one of those where you go, oh, bloody hell, type of a thing, and you sort of dust yourself off and you go again. It's not the same mistake that he's going to make again and again and again. You'd hope it's not like trying to dribble out from the back against Haaland, against Ronaldo, against Jesus type of a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
in regards to the attack. Oh, sorry. Yeah, carry on.
I was just going to say, I agree with you that Mings has been one of our most consistent performers this season. I think that just sums up where we are and why we are where we are in terms of. I think there was a feeling in terms of Villa need to push on for Europe. We need to improve the personnel. Really, was what Gerrard was saying at the start of the season. Was ultimately he didn't think Mings was good enough to be in the team that's getting you into Europe, and Mings has been one of the best performers in the team. I agree, but we're a team in 16th, not 6th. So, in a roundabout type of way, it's a position. It's the worst of both worlds for Gerrard in the fact that he's probably, you could say, has been proven right in terms of his initial thoughts about Mings, but he's in a position now whereby he can't drop him because the defense looks worse when he's not in it. So, no real progress. A catch-22 in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the Mings is a debate that everyone can have every week. I'm very pro Mings, as you know, and I'd say that you were more pro Mings than you were negative against Mings type of thing. I think that we could get Europe with him in defence. I think it's more about the people around him as well and having the confidence in them. And it's such a shame that Carlos got injured and Konsa had that shaky spell, because since Konsa's come back in and has been playing well, we've seen a better Mings. Luka Din has helped massively. Boubacar Kamara was helping massively. But as we say, it's not the defence at the moment that seems to be the problem. It's the attack. And the two gilt-edged chances that we really had that we should have scored from was that back post Leon Bailey header that went over the bar, and it seemed harder to put it wide than he did to get it into that top corner, because Kepa wouldn't have saved that. And there was the Danny Ings header, and Danny Ings has got to do a lot better with his effort there. You know, I know I'm pro Ings, but I'm not naive enough to think that he shouldn't have scored. I don't get the whole it's the best save of the season, as everybody was banging on about. You know, it's pretty much straight at Kepa, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But Kepa made a couple of good saves as well. In particular, the one from Jacob Ramsey, where we'd had the shot, he came back out and he was on the floor, and Ramsey's hit it and he's managed to stop it, and then Ings in the offside position had his effort pushed onto the post. But we just see him toughless, and it's a shame in many ways. And again, this is another thing that goes in Gerrard's favour, whilst also not going in his favour. Cameron Archer just does not seem to be fit enough to play. You know, Gerrard had the little to-do, or the words with Ashley Priest about Cameron Archer a couple of weeks ago. Archer came on against Forest and looked rather decent. And if he'd have started up front in a front two, you wouldn't have blamed anybody for putting him up front. But he just doesn't seem to be able to get fit. So when it comes to January, are you hoping that you've scouted somebody absolutely amazing at the World Cup and bringing them in to fire us up the table?
Yeah, we need, like a lot of teams in the league, we need a striker who's going to put a ball in the net. And, you know, that's easier said than done. And the holy grail often of football at the top level. And Ings and Watkins played together against Chelsea, but Watkins started on the left, Ings in the centre. Then in the second half, it seemed that Ings and Watkins swapped positions interchangeably, which I don't think worked. In all honesty, I don't think Ings did very much on the left wing, and I don't think that's particularly his fault, because I don't think he's suited to playing there. But in terms of Archer, if he's fit, I'd play him. I think I've said that a few times so far this season, and unfortunately, it's out of necessity now. I mean, the Forest game on Monday, where his header kind of went backwards, I think that was probably the closest we got to scoring, apart from Ashley Young, which I think summed up what else was going on. But yeah, in terms of another striker, yeah, we need. I agree. We need somebody who's going to score. In terms of when you're in the position we're in at the moment, whereby, yeah, Sunday we had a good few chances where we should have scored, but the rest of the season we've had one or two chances a game. You need somebody who's going to put them away, and Watkins is not that player. And Ings, you have to, in effect, let him have a few games where he misses to get him up to speed, and it's a difficult position to be in when you're struggling and the pressure's building to, in effect, say, the guy we're going to play up front, we need to let him play into four, whether we have that time, whether we have that luxury. But unfortunately, that is the position we're in. But you got to hope Archers get fit soon. For me, I'd play him. I mean, as I said, I don't think there's any reason not to play him. In terms of, I think Gerrard getting angry or agitated, or whatever word you want to use, in terms of the questions from the Birmingham Mail, sum up where we are perfectly reasonable questions, because in terms of, until Villa start scoring goals, you are going to be asked questions as to why you're not playing a striker when the other strikers you're playing aren't scoring. So you're going to get that question, and I think if he honestly doesn't think he's going to get that question, and I think that's pretty naive. And I don't think he is naive. I think it's just trying to, slam down legitimate criticism, because there's a situation at the moment where there's plenty of criticism, more criticism where that came from. So I think, to be fair, I think Priest's questions are perfectly justified in that scenario. If Watkins was banging them in, then yeah, I could see why. Gerrard may say, what are you asking me that for? But how many goals have Watkins scored this season? 1. Is it? How many has Ings scored? 1, I think. So in that scenario, you're going to be asked the question. So repeatedly asked the question. So I think it's fair in my view.
Yeah, I agree. And it's as you say, players need to be given chances, and it seems that in some ways, and it's nice to see that he's got faith in players, but sometimes he gives the same players too much of a chance when you need to twist and not just stick. When Watkins scored his goal against Palace, it was a fantastic finish, but at the same time, what has he done since then? Really, you know, Ings scored his goal against Everton, was dropped not that long afterwards, and hasn't really had the chance up until the Chelsea game to show what he can do again. But that's Gerrard for you at the moment. He's been the same with the midfield. You know, he's taken McGinn off quite a bit more, which I think McGinn's played quite well recently, you know, to be honest with you. And I'll be the first to take the mickey out of him when it comes to you. But he's been doing all right. We just need to put out the best team, not necessarily the best players, to now go and get a result at Craven Cottage, don't we? So you wonder, when we go to Craven Cottage, would you stick with that same formation, the 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, whichever? And would you have Cameron Archer lead the line?
There you go. You mentioned Fulham. Thursday night, Craven Cottage, 7:30 on Amazon Prime, I believe. So let's get into our Fulham preview. And in terms of Archer, if he's fit, I'd play him 100%. If he's fit, which is obviously a big disclaimer there. Because, as I said, Watkins hasn't done enough, in my view, to justify his place in the team. In certain games, we've said, you know, horses for courses, Watkins is a player you'd want in certain games. I don't think Fulham is a game whereby the primary focus should be holding the ball up, you know, keeping it tight, you know, in terms of really trying to limit the opposition playing from the back, you know, kind of more defense first attitude is, I think, where you tend to see the best out of Watkins, generally speaking. Again, I think I said it before the Forest game, and I'll say it again ahead of the Fulham game. We should not go and play for a point, and we should not be satisfied with a point in terms of where Fulham are in the table currently. In terms of, they had a decent start to the season, to be fair. So they are 11th on 12 points at time of recording before the midweek Premier League fixtures. They are 3 points ahead of Villa at time of recording. But their last 5 matches, they've won 1 out of 5. They've lost 3. In terms of, they score goals, they've scored more than double the amount of goals we had. Mitrovic up front. I can't remember who said, but I think somebody might have said he might have an all right season, and somebody disagreed. I mean, he gets lost in the midst of time as to who made that prediction. So goal scoring isn't a problem for them. But you look at their defence. Bournemouth last game conceded 2. West Ham game before 3. Newcastle before that 4. Forest 2. And Tottenham 2. So they can't defend is a short answer, but in terms of they can score quite a lot of goals. So for us to go and keep it tight and, you know, just try and damage limitation exercise, I think that is going to be the wrong way to approach the Fulham game. And in terms of if you're going to go more attacking, Archer with his pace and with his finishing, to be fair, you got to give him more than 10 minutes at the end of a game. I would play him in answer to the question. In terms of the shape, then it becomes an interesting conundrum in terms of, do you stick with the 4-3-3? I think just because one of the criticisms that's been levelled at Gerrard is can't keep the same shape, can't keep the same team, keeps changing it. I think you've got to at least try and stick with either the same team or the same formation. And then on the basis, I don't think we should stick with the same team because I'm saying playing Cameron Archer. I'd stick with the same shape. I'd stick with 4-3-3. Just, you know, in terms of, I don't think we can have the scenario whereby Monday night against Nottingham Forest, Coutinho and Buendia both played. Then they both got drops for the game against Chelsea on Sunday. Just got to try and get consistency from somewhere. Just got to start. So I would play Archer. I'd keep the same shape as we did against Chelsea, and, you know, to take the risk in terms of trying to get some consistency as much as you can in terms of selection as well. I mean, in terms of, didn't mention it for the Chelsea review, but I thought Dougie Luiz played quite well against Chelsea, to be fair to him. So I'd keep the same midfield, and I'd play Bailey, and then I think you got one spot left really in terms of Watkins started on the wing against Chelsea with Ings up front. I'd play Archer up front, and I'd think about playing Buendia, to be honest, cutting in from one side and Bailey on the other. And I think in terms of, for me, just trying to get that consistency, Digne at time recording doesn't look like he's fit, so I play the same defence again, and I play the same goalie. And in terms of from a Villa perspective this season, only making 2 changes is quite remarkable. But yeah, we've got to start somewhere. And I think in terms of, because there has to be an element of us going to attack, or at least just not sit back and play for the point, then I think Buendia and Bailey and Archer, I think that's a more creative front 3 than potentially playing Watkins on the left. Though, is that a crazy cavalier approach for you, Will? Or are you advocating something different? Or is that similar to how you would approach the game?
I mean, I'd stick with the 4-3-3 at the moment, though my personnel would be slightly amended. I think we're the type of team that Fulham are probably going to be licking their lips about playing because, as you say, they're scoring goals. Mitrovic is on form this season, having a great season back in the Premier League. They're quite quick on the attack. They've got some good players like Harrison Reed's having a very good season for them in centre midfield, and they're going to be dangerous. They're at home. It's a small ground. There's going to be a lot of noise. They'll want to get behind Fulham to try and intimidate us, of course. And if we concede a goal early on, our heads are probably going to drop. I completely agree about the back 5, including Martinez. Martinez, though, I'd hope he learns to use his hands this week after Mason Mount's free kick. Sorry, Dave. I know you may never speak to me again, but I'm sure you said something negative about Danny Ings the other day. For a midfield 3, though, I'd go slightly different. Dougie Luiz keeps his place, but he keeps his place as an 8. I think we need to be a little bit more solid. So I'd have Dougie Luiz on the right as an 8. I'd have John McGinn on the left as an 8 because you want a left-footed player there, And as I say, I feel he's been doing quite well recently. My defensive midfield, so JJ comes on if we need an injection of pace later on. Potentially goes onto a wing if we need to. I know Liam from the Qatar Lions very much liked JJ playing on the left wing against Man City and wonders why that hasn't been continued. I would actually start Nakamba at DM. And I know Nakamba hasn't had a lot of game time, but if all you need is someone to put in some tackles and just play the ball simply, he's the man for that job. He's a natural defensive midfielder. He had a good spell of form when Gerrard first joined. It's about time he had a chance again. From what we've seen of Dendoncker so far, we haven't seen enough to be impressed or disappointed, really. Though 3 touches on his debut wasn't amazing. Then again, his debut was against Manchester City. So maybe you can, sort of let him off there. My front 3, I would have Buendia on the right. And I'd be saying Buendia, we
No, I think we've had a little technical cut out there. So
the lad didn't always stay out on the wing. He used to inside wherever he wanted to. Often he'd end up in a number 10 role. Emily, you're great at going and getting the ball and finding it. You could find Wally in one of his books. We found
No, I think we had a little bit of a technical cut out there, so hopefully the sound quality's back on. So I just ask you, sorry, Will, just to repeat in terms of who your front three would be. Oh no, in terms of that is the perils of live recording there in terms of a little bit of a cut in and a cut out, but hopefully I have
Yeah.
sufficiently padded in order to be able to say, Will, in terms of cut out a little bit there, in terms of who would you have as your front three?
Okay, so you heard my Nakamba and Dougie and McGinn as my midfield. So I'd have Buendia out on the right wing. And I'd say to Buendia, we used to have a lad called Jack, and he didn't stay out wide all the time. He did what he wanted to do. You've got his old shirt. Go and channel that in a Grealish. Do what you normally do, Emma. Get in behind, set up for the strikers. I say strikers, even though I'm going with a front three. So Danny Ings, of course, starts up front for me because I think if he gets the chances against a burnt Leno, he's gonna get them on target and he's gonna score one or two. I'm confident of that. My left wing is where I start Cameron Archer. And the reason for that is it takes some of the pressure off him of being the lone striker and needing to score the goals for us to win the match. It allows him to tuck inside with Ings if Buendia drops behind them. And he also has the experience of Ashley Young and also our captain, John McGinn, on that side with him to help him through the game. And if we're winning towards the end and it seems like we're going to win the match, why not take off Danny Ings, bring on Bailey on the left wing with half an hour left, and shove Archer up front for the last half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever then, to give him that run up front and hopefully build up his confidence. But he deserves a chance. If he's fit, he has to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point in terms of having that support network behind him on the left-hand side. But I do agree in terms of if he's fit, got to get him in the team sooner rather than later. In terms of, as mentioned earlier, I don't think the team who has been playing has done enough to keep the same old things happening again. And I do think in terms of you can't just, as Gerald said after the Forest game, you can't keep putting the same players on and just saying they got to do something. It's like, well, manager, you've got to do something yourself in terms of trying to change things up when what has been tried to date is not working. But speaking of changing things up, is the formation or players that Gerard may or may not play on Thursday at Fulham, is that going to change the run of form currently where Villa only had one win in the last five? Saying you can prove anything with stats, can't you, really? Is it going to lead to a return to winning ways, or are Fulham going to take something out of the game? So, score prediction time, Will. What are you thinking for Thursday night?
Oh, I hate this question at the moment. I really, really do. I, I think it's the beginning of the end, and I know I've said that quite a few times, but I really do think it is going to be on this occasion. I think Fulham are going to beat us. I think they're going to beat us 2-1. I think they'll be 1-0 up with 10 minutes or so left. We'll try to throw everything at it. They'll go and get a second, and we'll get a late consolation. Either that or we'll open the scoring, and Mitrovic will score a couple and do his celebration and point at our esteemed pundit who said that he wouldn't score many goals this season.
Yeah.
And I see Fulham beating us 2-1, unfortunately.
Well, in a rare role reversal, it falls on me then to have the more positive prediction for the outcome of the game. I don't think we'll win. I don't think we're going to go that far. I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go 1-1 for this one, just in terms of, yeah, Fulham score goals. And I think we conceded at least one goal in terms of Actually, I was trying to think in terms of most of our away games. Is it only one away game where we've kept a clean sheet? I think we kept a clean sheet away at Leeds from recollection, but the others we've conceded at least one. So I suspect we may concede a goal, but I'm going to be optimistic. We're going to score one. I mean, in terms of we won't create as many chances as we did against Chelsea, but we're going to put one in the back of the net, and then the same questions will no doubt be asked ahead of the next game against Brentford, because it won't be enough. A point won't be enough for Gerrard era to come to an end, but it won't be enough to stop the questions that are going to be asked in respect of where this team is going. So a rare scenario whereby neither of us have predicted a Villa win, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens on Thursday night. If you're down at Craven Cottage, hope you enjoy the game in person. If you're watching on Amazon Prime, then Mr. Bezos will be pleased of your contribution if you're watching it from home. But if you want to give your views or interact with our polls and debates and comments ahead of the game, then you can go to our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we will be keeping you up to date with all of the build-up to that game and all of the aftermath, whichever way that may go. You can check out our audio podcasts, past and present, on our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. We're also on Fan Hub. And you can go on YouTube to check out previous episodes, some of which are visual, some of which are not. But we will leave you to discover which ones have our beautiful faces. And also some have special guests. So you can increase your visual pleasure in terms of our YouTube channel. But before I pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself for his final thoughts, thanks very much for listening, engaging on social media with the podcast and our Twitter page and YouTube channel. Very much appreciated. May not be the best time to be a Villa fan, but you know, when has it been over the last 10, 15 years, really? So keep the faith, keep supporting the team, hopefully keep supporting the podcast, and we'll be back again with you soon. Cheers for now.
Well, cheers, Tar. Thank you very much, as always. And despite me saying that I think we'll lose, I'm sure we've got enough of a buffer in my Premier League predictions to clinch the title within the next couple of weeks before everybody jets off to the World Cup. But in the meantime, Fulham, Thursday night, let's hope that half full glass that you've got in your hand isn't being used to drown your sorrows, that you're thrusting it violently into the air and doing a Baz, spilling it all over yourself, knowing that the Villa have just beaten Fulham and actually we're on our way towards a European adventure. One can dream, can't they? As always, I'm Villa till I die. He's Villa till he dies. Cheers, sir. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.